1 Corinthians 7, where Paul is not talking about divorce, he's talking about marriage. He talks about it in the terms of Exodus 21. Because Exodus 21, of course, is not talking just about divorce. It's talking about the vows which you make to each other when you get married. You vow to care for each other. You vow to provide food, clothing, and conjugal rights for your partner. And those vows are the central parts of marriage.
So what does Paul say exactly?
See here we have the authorised and all the older translations in the Greek above. At the beginning of the chapter he says, defraud not one another except... this translation is quite difficult to understand. Let's go to the Dallas translation, the Net Bible. Here, do not deprive each other except by mutual agreement for specific times so you can devote yourselves to prayer. Then resume your relationship.
So he's talking about conjugal rights. A husband should give his wife her sexual rights.
Yeah,
so
this is a modern translation which actually had the word sex in it.
Yeah.
The older translations avoid that, of course.
So,
but this is talking about sexual relations within marriage.
Yeah. But that's one of the marriage vows that come from Exodus 21. Marital rights is something that God required a wife and husband to share with each other.
Yes, we mustn't get too strict about it. Obviously, some couples, when they get older, then sexual intercourse isn't possible anymore. But there should be that warm, loving relationship between them, and that they should be offering their bodies to each other. And Paul says that not that you own the body of your husband or wife, but you owe your body to your husband and wife. So it's not something to grab, it's something to give. And it's a serious and important part of marriage.
And not to defraud each other.
Yes, it's interesting he uses the word defraud as if it's something that's owed, and if you don't give, then you are defrauding the person. It's something that's owed. It's something that's required in marriage, and it's a very important part of marriage.
Okay, what about food and clothing? Where would we find that?
Yeah, this, strangely, is where Paul is saying, well, this is a reason why you might choose not to get married at the moment. In Corinth, they were going through a time of famine. It was very difficult getting married because you then had children without conception. And so you then had a family to bring up. And in a time of famine, when there wasn't too much food around, how are you going to support that family? So Paul says, at this present time, maybe you might think about not getting married. You might decide to stay as I am, stay single. See, in verse 26, he says, because of the impending crisis at the present, I think it's best for you to remain as you are, to remain single. But then he says, why? Because I wish you to be free from concern. An unmarried man is concerned about the things of the Lord, how to please the Lord. But a married man is concerned about the things of the world, how to please his wife. And a woman, too, is concerned about the things of the world, how to please her husband. You have to provide the food, you have to provide the clothing, you have to provide the material needs for your partner. And that's a difficult thing to do when there's no food, no clothing around. Actually, we've got a very nice way of seeing what those worldly things are, because we have it in Luke describing what you're anxious about in the world. Here, when Jesus is talking about the anxieties that you have. Therefore, I tell you, do not be anxious about your life. What is it? What you'll eat, about your body, what you'll put on, because life is more than food and body is more than clothing. The worldly things, if you like, the food and clothing, are the things that you have to worry about when you're married, because you've got to look after your wife and children. They're not bad things, but they are things of the world which might distract you from the Lord's work, as Paul would see it. So Paul is affirming those three grounds for divorce, but not as divorce grounds. He's affirming them as required in marriage, as vows within marriage, and using Exodus 21 to define what marriage is.